All right, what's going on, guys? So in our last video, we talked about beginner stuff for AOD and how to minion tank and how to be a DPS. This guide is going to focus on base tanking. And it's also going to have a lot of tips and tricks for how you can lower your kill times and make the kill go as smooth as you can. First, we're going to go over our gear. This is going to be a decently high level setup. So I'm bringing full tier 95s. It's just, if you're going to be base tanking, this is significantly harder than just minion tanking or DPSing, since for those roles, you're pretty much just standing there and hitting the boss. Base tanking is a lot more involved. There's a lot more opportunities for you to take damage, and your team is doing a lot to rely on you so that you can meaningfully impact the team. Because of that, it's important that if you decide to base tank, you bring a little bit better gear, and then you're already aware of the mechanics that Nex has. This isn't to say that you can't base tank with bad gear, but you get a lot of sustain from tier 95, both through you doing more damage, so your soul split heals you more, but also your Vengeful Ghost does more damage, which means your Vengeful Ghost is going to heal you more. In all likelihood, you're going to be tankier in tier 95s than you are going to be in tier 90 tank armor. I'm using a Scripture of Jazz, an Amulet of Souls, and a Ripper Demon. If you have a Grimoire, which I do, you can use a Grimoire and a Calgarian Demon instead with scrolls. Not everyone has a Grimoire, so this setup is going to be more than fine. You're not going to notice a huge difference in DPS. If you do have a Grimoire and you'd like to use it, this is one of the bosses where your trash loot should cover about how much money you'd be spending in your Grimoire. So this is a good boss to use a Grimoire for. But again, it is very expensive and you absolutely don't need it. Most people have a Scripture of Jazz by now. Amulet of Souls is fine. If you want to bring an Essence of Finality, you can. I use an Essence of Finality because I have one, so keep that in mind. Besides that, we have food. I'm bringing Sailfish, Brews, and Blubbers. We have our Necromancy runes, and we have 2 rune pouches. This is for just Disruption Shield. You don't need Disruption Shield, but because you want your familiars or your conjures to last as long as possible, being able to life transfer and Disruption Shield to offset some of the damage that you're taking is really nice. So if you're going to base tank, Disruptor Shield isn't mandatory, but it makes your kills a lot safer, especially if you're missing prayer flicks. AOD can auto attack you 4 and 5Ks. So if you life transfer right at the beginning of the fight and then you opt out of eating and you miss a prayer flick, you can just die. I've done it before. That's it for the gear setup. Now we're going to get into a kill. I'm not really going to go over all of the mechanics again. I'm still going to explain what I'm doing, but I'm not going to go over all of the mechanics again. I'm just going to show you what a kill is going to look like as a base tank and what you're doing differently. After we go over a kill, we're also going to go over some tips and tricks for how you can speed up your kills. So now we're going to get into a kill. To make sure everyone is summoning all of their guys at the same time, you want to cast an ability that doesn't use any adrenaline and that has a visual cue that's easy for people to see. I use Reprisal. Unfortunately, my camera is covering it right now, but let me actually switch to RuneScape so I can show you what. So this ability is Reprisal. It's normally a threshold, but if you cast it with no target, then it does this red animation and it does this. So that's a good way of signaling to your team what you want to do. Yeah, if you do that, it just syncs up everyone's ability so that everyone's conjures are lasting the same duration. So here, let's get into a kill. I check to make sure there's 6 people besides me. I use Reprisal, then everyone starts summoning. I use Life Transfer here. Because I'm the base tank, I'm going to be responsible for a few debuffs. I want to make sure that Nex is vulned at all times, and I want to make sure that she's death marked. So because I'm going to apply death mark, right here in the beginning. The timing for this is you want to activate Deathmark as soon as you see that explosion. Then you want to activate Skeleton, and then you want to target cycle and activate Soul Sap. And then you want to Vuln as well. So you see I got that all done very quickly. So now we're just doing our tanking. Whenever Nex melees, it can only hit the base tank. So her melee attack is that melee swipe. It's the same exact melee attack from base Nex. So you just want to pray melee for it. If you're not sure what you should be praying, you should always opt into praying melee, because the melee attack hits one tick after the animation starts. The magic attack needs to physically connect with you before you take damage from it. So I'm making sure I'm doing my soul split flicking for melee. She's doing her jump like she normally does. So we're in a high-end team. Well, we're in a decently high-end team. So we got to skip Blood Reaver spawning. So here, I'm just stacking my Volley of Souls. Now, here, I'm also responsible for clearing the Amalgamations. Now, you want 1 or 2 people in more experienced teams to clear Amalgamations, because you want the rest of the team to use Threads and Volley of Souls on Nex with all of the minions under her. So the timing for this is, if we go back a few seconds, you want to activate Invoke Death when these smokes are about halfway across the field. So you see it was a little bit more than half, so I activate Invoke Death. Then I'm going to activate Threads of Fate, and then I'm going to use Volley. Now, one of the quirks about Nex, whenever she does the jump, when she goes to summon Reavers, for some reason, we don't really know why yet, it makes it so that your Volley of Souls doesn't always hit behind her. So just keep that in mind. You want to wait a tick or two after she lands and the back ones are targetable. It just makes life a little bit easier. But yeah, so all the Amalgamations are dead, and then at this point, all I'm doing is soul split flicking. I don't have to do anything special anymore. Hi guys, this is Raph from the future. I decided it would be a good idea for me to show you guys the Amalgamations being done correctly, because it is a little bit finicky, but if you time things right, then it usually goes a little bit better. So here we're just going to show things going correctly. So here we're activating Deathmark as soon as the Amalgamations land. Threads of Fate, Volley of Souls, Soul Sap, Volley of Souls, and then they all die. That's what it should look like. You can do this a tick earlier, but you do run the risk of the back runes or the back Amalgamations not being destroyed. So just be aware that this is what it looks like when it goes properly. And if you are too hasty, then it can mess up. So here, all of the minions are lured. Ideally, everyone who didn't use their Threads of Fate before, what they're going to do here is they're going to Threads of Fate, Volley of Souls, Soul Sap, and then Volley of Souls. The good thing about Soul Sap is if you cast it under Threads of Fate, for every target that gets hit by your threads, your Soul Sap will generate that many souls. So because there's 4 minions here, which is really convenient, you can 5-stack Volley, Soul Sap, 5-stack Volley, back to back, and it does an insane amount of damage. Normally, if everyone's really coordinated and if the lures are done right, you just one-hit all of the minions here, and you just immediately start working towards the last phase. So now we're going to see what this looks like from the perspective of the DPS and the minion tanks, where we're going to do the Volley, Soul Sap, Volley tech with Threads of Fate. So base tank killed the Amalgamations. I'm doing my minion lore. Here I cast Threads. I cast Volley. You see I Soul Sap and instantly get 5 stacks back, and then I Volley. And then everyone did that, so all the minions died in a couple seconds. So you can see the magic attack here. It's this slow moving red smoke. It's hard to see it on my character model, but you can see it go to everyone else's character. So now we're moving into the last phase. And what we want to do now is we want to lower necks. So the last minion that was killed is Fumus. So we're going to start moving towards the smoke pillar. And then while the ice pillar is alive, Nex's auto attack is Ice Barrage. So this will stun you. Pretty much every single time she casts it, as long as you're under Anticipate and Freedom, it's not going to stun you. But as soon as you start moving towards your first pillar, you want to Anticipate. And also you want to pray magic because she only attacks with the magic in the last phase. So now we're going to do a lure in order to get Nex away from the enemies. Her attack range is really long, so you need to do a particular move in order to get her close enough to the last pillar that she can't attack anyone who's not in the center of the map. So here, what you want to do is you want to get in melee range near the wall of the last pillar. Then you want to follow the wall all the way up to the second to last pillar, in which case is the Crueler pillar. And then you want to get in melee range of this pillar. Then you want to go all the way back to the last pillar and then step on this purple line here. So where I just stepped. Now what that does is it puts her as close to this last pillar as you can get without doing any super crazy movements. And this is one of the ideal positions you want her to be in. So now here, she doesn't take any damage. So you just need to use your defensives to keep your health high and then make sure you resummon your Vengeful Ghost, use your Resonance whenever you can, resummon your Skeleton, activate your Vengeful Ghost. So another thing is that everyone is killing all of the pillars and that's all good. Because you're standing next to the last pillar, it helps the team a lot for you to use Invoke Death and Vulnerability on the last pillar. So here, we're just doing that. We were a tiny bit late on it, but it's all good. Now we're going to kill the last pillar. And then when the last pillar is dead, you should Vulnerability next, and then just use all of your hard-hitting moves. I already Vulnerability her at the beginning of the last phase, so that's why I didn't recast it here. But yeah, that is pretty much it. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a like and to subscribe if you want to see more content. If you want to support me monetarily, you can become a member. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.